For the people, by the people.
Welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. I'm Lanka, bringing you the news for News First, where we are and always will be with the people. Let's start off by taking a look at your headlines.
Final fuel shipment under the Indian credit line to arrive tomorrow. People on the streets demanding fuel. School students and office workers most affected by the fuel shortage. Gas shipment unloaded. Gas cylinders yet to be issued to the market. How did the loss-making national carrier pay 3.1 million rupees to an executive?
And now in your top story, the final stock of diesel under the Indian credit line is expected to arrive in the country tomorrow. Against such a backdrop, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has not announced the date for the next shipment of fuel. This has also resulted in limited fuel stocks being issued across the island. People whose lives have been severely affected by the fuel crisis took to the streets today demanding for fuel.
After staying in fuel queues for hours, people lost their patience and staged a protest blocking the road from the Dehiwala junction. The lane from Morotua to Colombo was later opened after police intervened and assured the protesters that fuel will be provided. Meanwhile, a protest was also staged in Panchikavatta demanding fuel. Police intervened and assured the protesters that petrol will be provided by noon. The availability of fuel across the country is reported to be the same. None of the filling stations in Badulla had stocks of fuel available today. School children and office workers were among the most affected due to the fuel crisis. Inter-district school transport service providers said that school transport services had reduced by 70%. This was the situation today at the Kalania railway station. Many students were at the railway station as school transport services had not operated as usual.
We now have News First's Charlene Benedict bringing us the latest updates on the fuel crisis in the country. Charlene, what are the latest updates?
Good afternoon, Disal, and good afternoon to all our viewers out there. However, it might not be a good afternoon for many people out there because of the current fuel crisis in the country. We've been reporting on this matter from early this morning, and the situation on the ground, although we really don't have to report it to you to a certain degree, because you might be experiencing the severity of the fuel crisis in the country. But what really happened? How did all of this come to this point right now? Well, we've been trying to contact the authorities, the responsible authorities, including the Minister of Power and Renewable Energy. When we contacted the Minister in the morning, we were informed that the Minister is attending a special meeting on the current situation in the country. But based on the information that we have available, we will bring all that information to you. Now, the statements made by responsible authorities in the country yesterday, we heard the Prime Minister saying that only 50% of the demand of fuel in the country can be supplied. And the Prime Minister, addressing the nation previously, had said that the 3 weeks starting from last week would be quite challenging for Sri Lanka as far as the supply of fuel goes. Now, as far as receiving fuel in the country, Sri Lanka has been employing a certain number of methods to bring down fuel from other countries, especially because of the forex crisis that Sri Lanka is facing right now. We initially were awarded a $500 million credit line from the Exim Bank of India, which was further extended. India extended a further $200 million credit line to Sri Lanka, which in total amounted to a $700 million credit line that was awarded to Sri Lanka from India for the specific purpose of importing fuel. However, this credit line awarded by India is now running out. The final diesel shipment under the $700 million credit line awarded from India is due to arrive in the country. Final shipment, meaning there will be no more fuel shipments coming to Sri Lanka under this $700 million Indian credit line, as the credit line has run out. Further, it was reported that Sri Lanka has now requested for a further $500 million credit line from India, again for the purpose of importing fuel. Now, the Indian authorities have not yet responded to this request of the Sri Lankan authorities, and the Sri Lankan authorities have not announced an alternative as to if we do not get approval for this $500 million credit line, which again has been requested from India, the Exim Bank of India to be specific. What is the plan? How is Sri Lanka to bring down fuel to the country? As far as the distribution of fuel goes, from the distribution points in the country, no fuel was issued to any tanks from Trincomalee, Kolonnava, Sapugaskanda and Muthurajavela yesterday, and these bowsers did not go out. We brought you details from various fuel stations in the country. Our correspondents continue to keep us updated on the situation in the country, and we in turn will relay those information to you. If you are currently even now in a fuel queue somewhere, you would understand the severity of the situation, as many of these fuel stations do not have fuel stocks available. There were certain incidents also reported of violence, of commotion that were reported in the country. However, we must note that we are reporting on these incidents to you to keep you abreast of the latest information, and resorting to violence or heightened emotions at this time of the crisis is really not a solution to this. A solution can only be found collectively through a joint effort of all the people, as Sri Lanka is at crossroads right now. The possibility of importing fuel from Russia was also discussed on a number of platforms. Today, Indian media reported that India has substantially increased the import of Russian crude oil before the Ukraine-Russia war broke out. According to these Indian media reports, India was only importing 1% of its total crude oil requirement. However, now India has increased that import to 18% of their national requirement. Now, in an article published on Economic Times, Indian media refers that Indian refineries brought 18% of all crude oil required in India from Russia in the month of May. Now, this was once again up from 1% that India was importing previously. Moving on to more local news, a 2-hour and 15-minute power cut will be imposed across the country today as well. Meanwhile, trade unions say that a shipment of 30,000 metric tons of furnace oil is anchored off the coast of Sri Lanka. Now, the furnace oil on board this ship cannot be unloaded into the country, as the payment for this furnace oil shipment has not yet been made. We will bring you that detailed report shortly. Moving on, in more local news, the police special task force arrested 2 suspects for the illegal possession of 305 litres of diesel in Paduka today.
The Special Task Force arrested 2 suspects for the illegal possession of 305 litres of diesel in Polvatta of Paduka. The arrest was made following a tip-off received by the Police Special Task Force. A 3-wheeler was also taken into police custody. A meeting organized by the Galle District Executive Council of the National People's Power involving intellectuals and professionals was held in Imaduwa, Galle last night.
Certain people thought when Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave the premiership to Ranil Wickremesinghe, since he wears a suit instead of a satakaya, he will receive assistance from the international community. They waited for 50 days. However, nothing happened. At present, people have been crushed and put into queues. This crisis was completely created by the rulers. The government should establish economic policies. They don't do that. The government is importing fertilizer and coconut oil and distributing sugar. This doesn't make sense. The government is the landlord of the port. The government is doing businesses there. Everything works as to the minister's wishes. This government is business driven.
Sri Lankan Airlines net loss for the year 2021 stands at 45,674 million rupees, according to the latest report of the Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises. The report further reveals that Sri Lankan Airlines has paid a salary of 3.1 million rupees to a top management official despite this loss. The Committee on Public Enterprise has paid close attention to the fact that the funds for the relevant payments have been provided through cabinet papers and public funds. COPE believes that Sri Lankan Airlines could have prevented its losses if the additional capital injection by the Treasury in 2020 was properly executed. COPE has also raised concerns over continuing to invest public funds in a loss-making national airline that continues to operate on impractical plans. Now, Venerable Battaramulle Sila Ratanathero inquired into the issues faced by farmers in the Katharagama area.
Did you eat the rice of God Katharagama to be reckless enough to stop the import of chemical fertilizer? Now the entire Rajapaksa family will be gone. Is there no chemical fertilizer in the new rice we import? The person who ended these imports has no brains at all. If they had brains, why would they do something like this? Our farmers are only given 20 litres of diesel. I read in a newspaper that 1,000 litres had been stolen from the Katharagama depot and were taken to police stations. And now no one knows what happened to them. Although the people don't know, those at the depot might. Why there are agrarian officers? They earn large salaries from the government. They have to issue instructions on how to carry out these activities. What is the point of leaders who can't even do this?
Australia has increased the minimum wage for workers in Australia by at least $40 a week.
Kotmale cheese, neum kirin neum cheese.
විදුරුමසින් ලේ ගලන එක සුළු කොට තකන්න එපා.
ලින්ක් සුදන් ආරක්ෂාකාර පූර්ණ මුඛ සෞඛ්‍ය විශේෂඥයා.
The Magic Chocolate Collection.
කොත්මලේ චීස් නැවුම් කිරි නැවුම් චීස්
have been asked to reduce the amount of tea they drink to keep the country's economy afloat.
Senior Minister.
කොත්මලේ චීස් නැවුම් කිරි නැවුම් චීස්
විදුරු මසින් ලේ ගලන එක සුළු කොට තකන්න එපා.
ලින්ක් සුදන් ආරක්ෂාකාර පූර්ණ මුඛ සෞඛ්‍ය විශේෂඥයා කොත්මලේ චීස් නැවුම් කිරි නැවුම් චීස්
විදුරු මසින් ලේ ගලන එක සුළු කොට තකන්න එපා.
ලින්ක් සුදන් ආරක්ෂාකාර පූර්ණ මුඛ සෞඛ්‍ය විශේෂඥයා කොත්මලේ චීස් නැවුම් කිරි නැවුම් චීස්
And that's a wrap of lunchtime news here on TV1. Thank you for watching and do join us again next hour with Live at 55 coming your way. Have a nice day.